8:38, June 23rd, 2017. I've decided to buy a half-mil dot scope, more specifically a 4 to 16 by 44 half-mil dot scope. I used the maximum magnification of 16, which is the magnification that I always use, because this big magnification, not only does it allow me to see stuff better, but the value of each mil dot is corresponding to less of an error at longer distances. That is, if I make a half of 1 mil dot of error while pointing and aiming and shooting, it would translate into something about, let's just assume, 5 centimeters of difference in the point of impact. Whereas if I were to use a magnification of say 4 instead of 16, then a half of a mil dot of error on the shooter's part would translate into something about, let's just say, 30 or 40 centimeters of mistake at longer distances. So that is why I opted for a 44 objective lens, because at magnification of 16, the 40mm lens was kind of inadequate. It was not too small, or it wouldn't give me too small of a field of view, but it was kind of on the small side. So I thought perhaps I should immigrate to a 44mm objective lens, because this would probably provide me with a better field of view at magnification of 16, optically speaking. Now the half-mil dot reticle I'm using is something like this. You have the mil dots, and then in between each of them you have this little line that would allow you to have half a mil dot. So the value of each of these spaces here is half of the value of the space between two actual dots. In other words, if I have to have a holdover of 2 mil dots, which is here, I would have to have 1, 2, 3, 4 of these spaces for my holdover. The good thing about half-mil dot scope is that if you have to have a 1.5 mil dot of holdover, you could just very easily have your holdover here without having to kind of do some guesswork as to where the half or 1.5 mil dot would be. It kind of simplifies the pointing and takes out the guesswork. The other good thing about it is that I used to have something like this for my range card. This would be the angles, and this would be the distances: 10 meters, 20, 30, 40, 50 meters. And here I would kind of round up the number of mil dots that I would have to have as a holdover at 10 meters. It would kind of round up to something like this, all of them 1 mil dots. Whereas it was actually kind of more of like 1.5 mil dot here, and then let's just say 1.2 here, 1.1 here, a little shy of 1 here, kind of like 0.9 here, and here I would have something like, say, 6, for example. But I would round them up to 1 because, you know, while hunting, you don't really have the ability to mess around with like something like 1.2. And this, which would all be 1s here with a little bit more than necessary of approximation, this is going to be like this in a HalfMil scope. The scopes might vary, of course, but the numbers would kind of be better to use because you do not round up the numbers. Also here, I would have to have 0 holdover for 0 degrees of angle and something about half a mil dot of holdover at 30 degrees, 1 mil dot of holdover at 60, and something about, 45, then something like 2 and 3 here for 60 and 75 degrees. This half mil dot was kind of a pain in the neck. Now, using the half mil dot scope, this is what I have: 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, rather than 0.5123. So again, this is much more straightforward and much easier to implement while hunting. And the story goes on and on. I mean, here I would have to have a lot of rounding up and you know, approximation here, but because of the half mil dot scope, I can round up the numbers with much less of an error and end up with better, clearer numbers, if you will, that would eventually improve my shooting at longer distances. I'm waiting for the scope to arrive, but I'm doing the range card in advance, and I'm pretty hopeful that this new half mil dot scope with the 44mm objective lens would yield nicer results. Thank you for watching.